Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Let me start here. First of all, I asked everybody to please bracket out everything that is associated with Islam in the popular media. So bracket that out, bracket out all forms of Islamism, bracket out all forms of what I call religious fundamentalism, because we are entering a completely different universal subculture of Islam. This is the world of Islamic esotericism and the occult, which is a very rich tradition spanning pretty much the entirety of the existence of Islam, I would argue, beginning with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family. Now, when I use the word theurgy, I use it almost in the very definition of the Greek as a God working. So, theurgy is also the cognative of the words theos and energeia. So we are talking about a God energy in the sense that we're talking about theurgy. And I would also say that, yeah, here we go.
Brilliant. Yes.
All good? Okay. I would also make the comparison that when we are talking about theurgy in the Islamic context, that we're also talking about the high Egyptian metaphysical understanding of the natural. Because in Islamic esotericism, we have a unashamedly Platonist metaphysical framework, where at the top of things is the one, Allah, the God in Arabic, who basically emanates creation into existence or self-discloses. The word that is used even in the Quran, it's tajalli, the self-disclosure of God, the theophany of God. And this theophany of existence happens through the names and attributes of God. So, let's begin by first looking at just very cursory fashion at the structure or architecture of the Islamic sacred universe in its esoteric grounding. So we have this emanationist cosmology of Quranic and especially Shiite theurgy. We have a basic fourfold hierarchy, which is God, who brings forth the initial worlds, the world of the Lahut, the world of the divinity in which the names and attributes occur. And from this then emerges the two worlds of the angels, al-Mala'ika, then the world of the Ins. And the world of the Ins is the world of humans, animals, plants, and minerals. And then, analogous to this, is the world of the Jinn, or Ajnan, in the plural. And the Jinn are also then subdivided into various categories. We have the guardian spirits, usually the good Jinn, al-Muwakkilun. We have the devils, the Shayateen. Then we have the demons, the Afarit. Then we have the giants, the Marid. And then we have another subspecies of demonic beings called the Ghul, or giants as well. This would be the exoteric of the esoteric element of Islamic sacred cosmology. The esoteric of the exoteric is the one that the Imams of Shiism, peace be upon them, delineate in their own hadith, or their sayings, where we have the world of the Lahut, the world of the divinity that is emanated by a Godhead, the God beyond God. And this world of the divinity that is emanated from it then is the world of the mother of the book, the al-Kitab, al-Kitab. From this then emerges the world of the Jabarut, the world of the Imperium, the world of the divine throne and divine footstools, and the seven archangels of the throne and the footstool. This is what the Imams call the primal world of the particles of light, Alam al-Dharat al-Ula. And within this world is the world where the pre-eternal covenant between humanity and God occurs, where there's a verse in the Quran, in pre-creation, in the primordial world, God asked humanity, Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? And those that responded with the yea, Bala, Shahadna, yeah, we testify. This is the world in which this primordial covenant occurs. And in Shiism, this whole trope within the Quran is quite important, because this is where then the whole dramaturgy of Shiism unfolds from that world. Following this, then we have Alam al-Malakut, the angelic world. And this world is then subdivided into itself the celestial heaven, Elyon, and the celestial hell, Sigil. So in this Islamic landscape, heaven and hell are actually occurring both in the same way, the world of the angels. And that is because in the Quran, rather than demons or devils being responsible for hell, it's actually 19 angels who are made the guardians of the gates of hell. So this is like the bad side. This is like, the clipotic world, or like the left side of the tree in the tree of life of the Kabbalah. It's kind of the same principle. And then from that emanates forth the world of the Mulk, the world of the dominion, or the Nasut. Now, all of these four worlds in the teachings, in the theurgic teachings of the Imams, correspond to four phrases that are actually recited by every Muslim after their prayer every day. And these four phrases within the world of Shiism are known as the Tasbih al-Fatima, the praise of the theophanic praise of Fatima. And this is Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar. Praise be unto God, glorified be God. There is no God but God, and God is the greatest. And each of these four phrases then corresponds to each of these four worlds. So by every Muslim evoking this every day, or every Muslim theurgist evoking this day, they are remembering or invoking the presence of these worlds simultaneously. But let's define Quranic theurgy itself. What is Quranic theurgy? What is its opposite? Well, in the Quran, in the 85th verse of the 17th chapter of the Quran, the Prophet asks God, what do I tell the people about your nature, about the nature of God? And God responds, Qul, say, Ar-Ruh min amri Rabbi. Say, the Spirit is from the command of your Lord. And the Ruh, the Spirit, this is an ontological category in itself that is commanded into existence by the transcendent itself. So in the definition of theurgy, what theurgists, Islamic theurgists, use to justify their craft is that everything that they do occurs from the realm of the spirit, because the Ruh itself, in a sense, is like a category of the universal intellect in Neoplatonism that comes into being, that unfolds within itself all the names and attributes of the One. And so that this is completely halal, licit from the point of view of even the fiqh or the Sharia, the sacred law of Islam. So one of my friends, Sigil Nizamuddin Ahmad, who has done quite an extensive amount of work on Al-Buni, the Tunisian occultist, made this very apropos definition of what we are talking about. Because people hear a lot about the fact that all forms of magic are forbidden and verboten in Islam. Well, not quite. First of all, there is no singular word of magic within Arabic, right? Some people usually use the word sihr, but sihr has a very specific denotation. That is, that sihr denotes goetia. It denotes witchcraft. It denotes black magic, and it's specifically black magic and goetia that is making pacts with sublunary beings and entities. So anything that is attempts to negate the unicity of God, or tries to worship any being or entity other than God, and use it, to hurt, harm, etc. This is what is specifically forbidden, right? And even by the definition, the Quranic definition itself, everything else is halal. So using the names of God to invoke, change time, change events, etc., this is all halal. And there have been lots of debates over the centuries about what is what, whether this is also sihr, whether even using names of God is sihr, but there's a lot of contradiction in those people who are advocating against using elements of the Quran and the names of God itself in a magical setting, in the Ruhaniya setting, in a spiritual setting. And that is that they have to then accept the fact that the book, the revelation of God itself, can be used for goetic purposes. And this is where these people always trip over themselves, and we're back basically at the definition of theurgy that is justified by these verses of the Quran. Now, the narrative of what is theurgy and what is non-theurgy, or what is spirituality and non-spirituality in the Quran, is situated within the narrative of the Surah of Taha, the 20th Surah of the Quran. And this occurs in the contest between Moses and Pharaoh's sorcerers. You know, Moses goes out to Mount Sinai, God gives him his revelation, his task, save the children of Israel, and here are your powers, here's your staff. God even tells Moses to throw the staff, to test the staff, that he's given him theurgic powers over the elements. And he tells them that the sorcerers of Pharaoh won't be able to reproduce this. So Moses and Aaron go to Pharaoh and tell Pharaoh, challenge Pharaoh and his sorcerers to a contest. And the sorcerers come out, and Moses come out. Moses throws his staff, they throw their staff. Their staff also becomes snakes, but the big stick swallows the other one. And the point of this story, and what the exegetes, what the Mufassirun have highlighted, is that whereas God gave the power of the elements and transformation to his prophet and to all holy ones, these sorcerers of Pharaoh were using trickery. So that when we are talking about magic within an Islamic context, so trickery, anything that deceives, is likewise within that category of sihr, rather than being ruhaniya, spirituality. There's also the story of Harut and Marut that is mentioned in the second surah of the Quran, Al-Baqarah, the two angels, not demons, two angels that God sends to the people of Babylon during the time of Solomon to test them. And these angels are tasked specifically in teaching sorcery to the Babylonians. And these people abuse it, and they destroy themselves. But the angels tell them that we were sent specifically by the All-High to teach you this, to test you, to see whether you're responsible. So the Quranic narrative then situate what black magic or what black sorcery and Goetia then entail in opposition to the theurgy. Responsible use of these powers and irresponsible use of these powers. In any case, all of this should highlight that the acquisition of such knowledge requires spiritual exertion, riyada, which underscores the Quranic theurgy is seen as an occult technology revolving around the divine names and attributes of the All-High, mentioned in the book and beyond the book, so that not everything that is written in occult texts, is necessarily everything that is known. I don't have to belabor the point with people here. I think everybody knows that. Next. So what are the basics of the theurgic practice of Quranic theurgy? Well, the opening surah of the Quran, Al-Fatiha, the 112th surah of the Quran that delineates the unicity of the All-High, Surah Al-Ikhlas, the throne verse that occurs in the second chapter of the Quran, the light verse that occurs in the 24th chapter of the Quran, the verse of gathering, Surah Ayat al-Hashr, and the Surah of Power, which many Shia Muslims believe is the surah specific as a theophany of Fatima herself. And whenever this surah is recited by Shia Muslims on the 23rd night of Ramadan, the Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, the Shia Imams believe that this surah instantiates the metaphysical reality of Fatima herself. So, that is the divine feminine element to all of this. So, the 99 beautiful names, Al-Asma al-Husna, that are mentioned in the Quran, each of these 99 names and attributes of God are held to be an instantiation of a distinct and unique theophanic reality, a haqiqa al-wahid. So, for example, we have names like beginning with Allah, God, Ar-Rahman, the compassionate, Ar-Rahim, the all-merciful, Al-Quddus, the holy, As-Salam, the source of peace, Al-Mu'min, the inspirer of faith or the faithful one, Al-Muhayyimin, the guardian, Al-Aziz, the tremendous, Al-Jabbar, the compeller, Al-Mutakabbir, the haughty, Al-Khaliq, the creator, Al-Bari, the fashioner, Al-Musawwir, the former, Al-Ghaffar, the forgiving, Al-Wahhab, the giver, Al-Razzaq, the sustainer, Al-Fatah, the opener, and Al-Alim, the knower of all things, and so on and so forth for 99 names. Now, within the Quran itself, there are 29 chapters that open up with disconnected letters. And there's 14 sets of these disconnected letters, which are actually formed by 14 letters themselves. And these play a very central role in all of Islamic theurgy. There are many interpretations of what they mean, but amongst Shiite esotericists, because it is exactly 14 letters composed of 14 sets running throughout 29 surahs of the Quran, Shiites hold these to be reference or ideophanies of the 14 infallibles of Shiism, which is the Prophet, his daughter Fatima, and the 12 Imams. Avicenna, the great Persian peripatetic Neoplatonic philosopher, who died in 1030 Common Era, had this wonderful, massive crypto-Ismaili commentary on what all of these letters mean. I could go through them, but it would probably take a while. So these 14 letters in themselves, within the practice of the Ruhaniya, are held to be the huruf al-nuraniya, the letters, the luminous letters. And these letters are the letters, these 14 letters of the Aleph, Ha, Ha, which is the Kat of Hebrew, the letter Ta, Ya, Kaf, Lam, Mim, Nun, Sin, Ain, Sad, Qaf, and Ra. The other remaining 14 letters of the Arabic alphabet, since we have 28 letters exactly in the Arabic alphabet, these are known as the huruf al-zulmaniya, the darkened letters. So the letters of light and the letters of darkness. And these are Ba, Jim, Dal, Wa, Za, Fa, Shin, Ta, Fa, Kha, Dal, Tad, Za, and Qain. And from these letters, then there is another element that usually forms the basis of Islamic amulets. And this is kind of the crown, as it were. And this is the greatest name, the calligram of the greatest name, Al-Ismullah al-Adha. And this calligram, or this symbol, originates with a poem that is universally attributed to the first Imam of Shiism, Ali ibn Abi Talib, alayhi salam. And the poem runs as follows: 3 sticks in a row after a seal, above them the semblance of a straightened lance, then a blind meme without a tail, then a ladder unto all that is hoped for, but which is not a ladder. 4 things like fingers in a row pointing to good deeds, but without a wrist, and a ha that has been split, then an inverted wow like the siphon of a phlebotomist, but not a bloodletting cup. This is the name whose worth is magnified. If you were ignorant of it before, know it now. O bearer of the great name, take sufficiency in it. You shall be preserved from misfortune and shall be kept safe. It is the secret name of God. May its glory be glorified unto all men, be they Arab or non-Arab. Now the later tradition, especially in the tradition a few generations before the Tunisian occultist Ahmed al-Bouni, made associations with each of these independent sigils of this greatest name that have become pretty much universal throughout the tradition itself. First of all, they associated letters, like the letter Fa for the first sigil, the pentagram. And this is held to instantiate or represent the first letter of the word Fard, the singular, which is the name of God. And from this name emerges an angel associated with that name, which is the angel or archangel Rugiail. The second one the name Jabbar, the compeller, from the letter Jim, and this represents the archangel Jibreel, or Gabriel. Following one, the name Shakur, the giver of thanks, and this is associated with the archangel Samael, which actually, if you trace it back to the Hebrews, the Samael is not actually an angel but a demon. Nevertheless, in the Islamic pantheon, this is an archangel rather than a demon. The following one, letter Fa, so the word, or rather the divine name, Thabit, the immutable. And this is associated with the archangel Michael. And so on and so forth. But these also have then, the 7 have planetary association. So the first, the pentagram is related to the sun. Next caligram or sigil is to the moon. Following one after that, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and finally Saturn. Shiite, in the Shiite world, they also associated with 7 of the Imams, the infallibles of Shiism. So the first one is Muhammad. Then the next one is Ali, Hassan, Hussein, and their son Zayn al-Abidin, and so forth, with the final sigil, the one that looks like an upside down 6, being associated to the Islamic Mahdi, who's supposed to be the return of the Prophet Muhammad. Now, the hieroglyphic spectacle letters, or the sigillic lunars, or occult pens, akalam, which in my studies I keep going back to the Greek magical papyri. These emerge within prayers and incantations that are associated with the family of the prophet. And sometimes you find a set of 7 of them, other times 19 of them. This was a subject of a treatise by Ibn Wahshiyya the Nabataean, who died in 930 Common Era. Ahmed al-Buni calls them al-Khanfatariyat, a word of unknown origin, and claims their usage in distant antiquity was Solomon's sorcerer, Asif bin Berkhia. The 16th century Shiite occultist Hossein Vaez Kashifi correctly attributes their origins, as far as the Islamic occult manuscript tradition is concerned, to the Shiite Imams, and designates them as Falaktair, meaning cleaving bird or the bird of daybreak. And these are, in their 19th form, held to represent the talismanic ideophanies of each of the 19 letters of the Bismillah. So when you want to invoke the angelic nature of the letters themselves, you use these falaktair, the cleaving birds, or the occult pens. And their genesis, their origin in the Islamic manuscript tradition, can be traced to the Shiite Imams, especially to the first, Ali. So, now, where am I? And the reason why they are attributed to Ali specifically comes from a circular amulet that almost all sources, even a lot of incredulous ones, agree was transmitted by the first Imam. And this circular amulet you see right there is called the Jannat al-Asma, the paradise of the name. It's a 5x5 amulet. Sometimes you find it in the form of 6x6, sometimes even 7x7. But the transmitter, all of the sources agree that this comes from Imam Ali alayhi salam. Al-Ghazali, the famous theologian and philosopher of the 11th century, 12th century, wrote a complete treatise where, even though he's a Sunni jurist, he commented that yes, indeed, this comes from Ali, and he endorsed the reliability of these devices, these amulets from the family of the Prophet himself. Next one. Hello. Now, the occult sciences in Islam were classified by this 16th century occultist that I mentioned before, Hossein Vaiz Kashifi, in the following way. In his book Asrar al-Qasimi, he breaks it down as kimia, alchemy. And alchemy is extremely important in the hadith of the Imams. Ali alayhi salam has a saying where he says that alchemy is half of prophecy. You know, whosoever masters the craft of alchemy has attained the first half of the rank of prophecy itself. And by that, messengerhood, you know, in almost the rank of the prophet himself. The next branch is talismanic magic itself, the limia. After that is followed by hemia, or spellcrafting. Semia is the next branch, and this is letter magic. And then finally, conjuration properly, rimia. And the actual letters of this spell the phrase kulluhu sir. All of it is a secret, which has a gematria or a numerical value in Arabic of 315, which then relates to one of the divine names, Qahir, the victorious or the avenger. This is from Hossein Kashifi's Asrar al-Qasimi. The crown science, obviously, of Islamic science, theurgy, is letteralism, the ilm al-huruf, you know, the gematria, the science of letters. Everything revolves around it. The mansions of the moon, for example, in the Shams al-Ma'arif al-Kubra, Ahmed al-Buni begins the text, the very first book of the Shams al-Ma'arif, with delineating the 28 lunar mansions. And he relates from the letter Alif to the letter Ayn. Each of these lunar mansions has instantiated each of these letters. So, and he says, you know, without mastering, you know, and knowing the correct correspondences between these letters and these 28 lunar mansions, that you can, the manazil al-qamariyah, you cannot actually do any operations. So the first book is devoted to this very subject, and then out of that emerges other things. So it is the crown of the science of Islamic theurgy. It is the pith and the marrow of the science. Now what is quite interesting is that when we then delve further and further and further and further and further into the tradition, we keep finding that this science itself, wedded to alchemy, has its source one of the Shia Imams, whether this be the 6th Shia Imam, Jafar al-Sadiq, or Ali himself. So even these transmitted sciences of letters and numbers and ideograms, etc., all of these go back to the Shia Imams once again. And it's through these channels of the family of the Prophet wherein then this travels into the Sufi orders. And in fact, many of the earliest masters, the people who established the Sufi orders, were themselves disciples of one of these Imams, whether it be Ali or Imam Hassan or Hussein or Zain al-Abidin, all the way to the 6th, Jafar al-Sadiq. Now, say a few words about what I call the letterist yogic theurgy of the Salat, of the daily, 5 times a day Muslims prayer. I mean, if you ask this some Salafists, some other mentalists in the street, they would be completely clueless and probably run away. But there is a yoga, there's a theurgic yoga associated with all of these movements. There's something that the Sufi orders all transmitted, have been transmitting for 1,000 years now. So for example, the iqama, the standing upright position for the salat, represents the letter Aleph that represents the word Allah, God. Then the next would be the ruku, the half bending of the waist. And people go into a sort of half prostration. This is the ruku. And this represents the letter Lam, the L, or Lamed in Hebrew. This represents the Aql Kulliya, or the Am, the first intellect, or universal command. And then finally, the sujood, the full prostration, when you go fully into the prayer, into the ground, then that represents the letter Mim, which then instantiates creation. And it also, the letter Mim itself is the first letter of the name of the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad. So, in a sense, you are reenacting the cosmogenesis with the Salat in the form of, and this is exactly what yoga itself is doing as well. Within the Sufi orders, this knowledge has been explained to novices and others for centuries in contemporary times. Most people don't know this anymore. So, why is all of this important? Why, in the context of Islam? And I would say, in the context of Islam, this is important because this enriches the tradition itself. That without this element of the esotericism, that in essence the tradition dies. Because the fountain of the revelation itself are these sources. It is the esotericism. It is the spirit. And these were the things that propelled the beginnings and the seeds of the revelation to begin with. I will end with a prayer, a theurgic prayer of Ali himself, where he invokes the Tetragrammaton. This is in Arabic, and I will then read my translation of it. And this gives you an idea of where the tradition is looking at, or what the vibe of this kind of stuff is. And this is a dua. A dua is a prayer or a supplication. The word itself, dua, comes from the root da'a, to call. So a dua is an invocation, that which is calling, right? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم إني أسألك باسمك المكنون المخزون السلام المنزل المقدس الطاهر المطهر يا دهر يا ديهار يا ديهار ديهور يا أزل يا أبد يا من لم يلد ولم يولد يا من لم يزل ولا يزال يا هو يا هو يا هو يا لا إله إلا هو يا من لا هو إلا هو يا من لا يعلم ما هو إلا هو يا من لا يعلم أين هو إلا هو يا كائن يا كينان يا روح يا كائنا قبل كل كون يا كائنا بعد كل كون يا مكونا لكل كون أحيا أشر أحيا يا مجلي الأزائم الأمور سبحانك على حلمك بعد علمك سبحانك على عفوك بعد قدرتك حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم ليس كان مثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, O God, verily I beseech thee by thy name, the concealed, the treasure, the peace, the revealer, the holy, the pure, the untainted, O durationless eternity, O eons of endlessness, O eternities of everlastingness, O pre-eternal, O post-eternal, O one who neither begets nor is begotten, O one unchanged and unalterable, O He, O He, O He, O no other God is there besides He, O one who no other He is there but He, O one who none knoweth is He other than He, O one who knoweth His awareness besides He, O existentiator, O formulating originator, O great spirit, O existentiator before all existences, O existentiator after all existences, O creator who is in every existence, Ahya Asher Ahya, I am that I am, O majestic theophanic disclosure of the mightiest commanding causes, glorified art thou by thy clemence after thy knowledge, glorified art thou for thy forgiveness after thy power. Sufficient unto me is God, no other God is there but He. In Him do I place my trust, for He is the Lord of the mighty throne, and nothing is like unto Him, for He is the hearing, the seeing.